What does it mean to honor your father and your mother? Does it mean doing what they say?
Have a good day.
Don't tell me what to do.
Well, what if your father tells you to worship other gods? Or what if your mother tells you to go steal something or murder someone? There can't be that glaring a contradiction in the first 10 commandments that God gives us. He can't be that dumb, can he?
Are you stupid or something?
I'm as stupid as stupid does.
Or maybe, is there something deeper going on with this commandment that just a little bit of study and a little bit of paying attention might get us to? Of course, it's the latter, and that's what we're talking about this week. Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching. Hello all, welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor of Kindred UMC.
My name is Ann, and I'm the treasurer for Kindred UMC.
My name is Andrew, and I'm the lay leader of Kindred UMC. Are we not going back to fun facts?
Fun facts are the third person's job.
Oh, the third person is the fun fact.
That's why I sit here.
I once spent $30 on a fidget spinner. I guess that's my fun fact.
I hope it was a really good fidget spinner.
I still use it, so I guess.
Hey man, longevity
It's been like
matters.
7 years.
Wow.
We are
Back when they
continuing.
were popular.
We are. Do you remember Pogs? Anyway, we are continuing our march through the 10 commandments, and we have arrived at what I consider the transitional point. I guess the Sabbath is transitional. Anyway, the 10 commandments are kind of split up into like two different sections. There's like all the how do you love God, and then it kind of gets into like, okay, how do you be people together? So we're into the how do you be people together. And arguably the keep the Sabbath holy commandment is the how do you do that. And now we're into, what is the fifth commandment? Fifth commandment. Does anybody know what it is? It's the one that most people forget.
Is that the one that's love thy mother and father?
Yes, it is.
I learned hand motions for all of them, and I still remember them.
Andrew, I'm so proud of you. You've made me so very happy.
I was going to get it wrong. I was going to say that.
The hand motion for that one is this, and I don't even remember why that was the hand motion, but somehow
knows?
this is
But it
like
did
the
it.
mother and father, I guess.
Did it. And we'll talk about the language. But so Exodus chapter 20, verse 12 sounds like this. Honor your father and your mother so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God, Yahweh Elohim, is giving you. The land that the Lord so that your days may be long so that the land that your God is giving you. In the land, you get it. I didn't do a good job of explaining that, but we'll talk about it. So first of all, just first reactions. What do you think is at the heart of this commandment? What stands out to you? Questions, comments, concerns?
Something that I find interesting is it's like honor thy father and mother, and then it's so that your days will be long. I believe that's so.
In the land that the Lord your God is giving you.
Yeah, so it sort of feels like it's like if you honor your mom and dad, then you'll live long. I wonder if it's sort of like, hey, if you honor your mother and father, then your kids will honor you and they'll take care of you in old age and that kind of thing.
That's not a bad interpretation at all.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of those like it takes a village kind of things. Like I wish my parents lived closer so that I could be doing things for them and they could also do some babysitting for me.
It would be a nice trade, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like there's something to that.
We for a very long time, unfortunately we had to put our dog down. But he lived a long and happy and healthy life. And part of that was my mom being the dog house sitter every time we went anywhere. And like, it's nice to have some family around. Before we continue, I want to remind you that we, for the foreseeable future, are collecting funds for a group called Zoe Empowers. They quite literally empower communities with skills and entrepreneurial education to make their own businesses and make an economy and a living in their own community. We've been assigned a community in Rwanda, and every dollar you give to this channel goes directly to helping those people. So please use the QR code over here or any of the links down below, or you can mail a check P.O. Box down below to Kindred UMC, and all of that will go to
to help the people in Rwanda that we are getting to know as we speak. So let's continue.
So there is something to that. So let's talk about cultural context. This was written in a much less globalized time. So this is much more tribe and family focused, of course. So what do you make of honor? Honor your mother and father. I can't remember the Hebrew word for it, but it's not obey. It's not, love them unconditionally. It's not take care of. It's honor. What do you make of that? And honor is a pretty good, the Hebrew word literally means to add weight. So like,
sort of like
one literal translation could be like fatten up your mother and father. But no, it means to add weight. It's a little bit of a turn of phrase, and honor is kind of the closest we can get to it. But the nature of that word is add weight.
I'm thinking sort of like a hold in reverence sort of thing is sort of the idea I get when I hear the honor thy mother and father.
Okay.
I get almost more of a, when you say add weight, I get like a make better. Does that make sense? Like put into it good things kind of thing?
I think we don't know. So these are all interpretive issues. So this is all, there's no definitive thing. So there's no wrong answers here. But that's about where I landed on it too, as I was trying to look at, all right, what's the real essence of this commandment? The add weight, like add value, increase their reputation in some way, something like that.
Yeah. I almost feel like there's a little layer of underlined respect, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like in being able to add that value to the thing, like you've got to kind of have a little bit of that respect for it. And again, I like the point of not just obey or whatever. Like, no, there can be, I don't want to say guidelines, but like limit,
Boundaries.
Thank you.
Hey, got it in one.
That was the word.
Yeah.
Well, because, we talk about that a lot because sometimes I think that's something important.
Yeah. Well, and
people.
I think that's an important thing to acknowledge with this commandment. It's honor.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best way to honor your family is not to obey them. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to bring honor to you by not doing what you asked me to do because this is unhealthy and bad. So there is something to that. The language of honor is intentionally vague. It's not obey. It's not adhere. It's not care for. It's not, it's honor. So here's the other observation that I want to lift up. So remember, where did Israel just come from? The Israelite people in the Exodus story.
Egypt.
Yeah. And what was their situation in Egypt?
Not good.
Right. They were enslaved. Yeah. And then also they're going into the promised land. Does anybody know where that actually is? What like the people group that they were kind of invading was?
Oh, there was a wall, right?
There's always
a wall.
That's Jericho.
Yeah,
right?
Jericho. That is part of it. Yeah. So the broadly, there's multiple people groups, but broadly speaking, it's Canaanites mostly. And so they're kind of coming from Egypt and into Canaan, and that's where the promised land is. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I bet you can make a pretty strong guess. What do you think those cultures thought of women?
Not great.
I was gonna say, I'm sure it was really good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, please,
Property, I assume.
please be
Yeah,
a little above property, but but you can hear it. You're like a little above property.
Yeah.
Like just barely.
Yeah.
There's like dog and then woman and then like everything else and then man.
Yeah, like certainly below man
Yeah.
and above property, but not equal to men by any means. They're weaker. They're dumber. they bleed once a month. Like this is the cultural idea. This is and then in fact, menstruation in particular was very frightening to a lot of men. And they're like, get her out of here. Like, take her to the edge of the village, which, by the way, all the biblical literalists out there, hey, you don't want gay people to get married? Well, then you need to go to the edge of town every time you menstruate. So, okay, all right. If you're going to be literal about it, then you got to be literal about it. Anyway, I digress. So, yeah, it's safe to say these are patriarchal cultures. These are inherently kind of misogynistic takes. What's the commandment that we're studying?
Honor thy father and mother.
That's right. You dang right. That's right. This is honor your father and your mother. And that is a revolutionary idea. One of the things that is constantly missed about the Ten Commandments is the underlying grace and the underlying egalitarian idea. We're going to talk in next week for us in a minute. For next week, for the rest of you, we're going to talk about the social laws, and then we've also talked about in the original 3 that are mostly about how do you worship God and the Sabbath. Like, there is an egalitarian thread that runs through the Ten Commandments. It's hard to understand for us today because we live in a Western republic, democratic, but we live in a representative government where everyone gets a vote. It took us a long time to get there because we certainly didn't start that way, but it's hard for us to understand because when you say everyone gets a vote, of like, most people would go like, yeah, of course, everyone gets a vote. The idea that these laws apply equally to everyone is a radical, revolutionary idea. So the idea that this law is honor your father. Yep. And your mother. What?
Yeah.
You want me to what now? Why? So that your days may be long in the land that I'm about to give you. Honor your father and your mother. Honor everyone is essentially what this law is. Honor everyone equally so that your days may be long. Now, here's the other thing. I think most people, when they hear this, they think children obey your parents. Sons and daughters obey your parents, which is a fair, I don't think that's completely out of the question. That seems like a reasonable, I'm with you there. Who's the audience for this? Who is this law actually written for? Who would be reading it?
Adults.
Yeah.
That's right. Adults. So now let's hear it differently. Adults, honor your father and mother. Who are the fathers and mothers of the adults who are reading these laws? Like, what's their social status?
Probably not very high.
Yeah.
And why?
I mean, they're probably older and can't, do the manual work that's involved in most of the stuff they have to do to survive.
Right. When I've preached on this, I always use the example of my dog, which I don't have anymore, unfortunately. But like, if you've ever had a pet, like my dog brings absolutely nothing to the table. Like, he brings nothing to the table. He sheds everywhere, all over my house. He wakes me up in the middle of the night to bark at squirrels. Truly a vicious threat in our backyard, Like, he doesn't bring anything of substance to the table, but he's my boy and I love him. And like, that's the heart of this law. Cultures were brutal in the ancient world. And so if a person grows elderly and they're just a mouth to feed and they don't bring anything of value, and they just run their mouth and tell old stories about nonsense that nobody cares, you old idiot. That's like, take them out to the jungle and leave them there and let them die out there. And that's one less mouth to feed. And here comes this law of Yahweh that says, honor your father and your mother, period, so that your life may be long. so that because one day you're gonna get old too, you idiot. There's something about it that is, every human life has inherent value. Like, that's what's at the heart of this law. So with all of that context and all of that kind of like history around it, how does this strike you differently? What would be your takeaway now?
Sort of in a more general sense, like you're saying, it's care for everyone, women and men, elderly and young, those that provide value and those that don't, even though they probably do provide value, just maybe not in a tangible sense.
There's something about see the inherent value in personhood.
Yeah.
There's like, it's begging us to see more deeply than what you can produce. Like, there's something in this commandment that's asking us to think more clearly and see more deeply, I think.
Well, and kind of a continuation of everything we've just talked about, in modern days, I think it's always been around at this level, but you're seeing more and more like mental illness and stuff in kids and whatnot. You'll see a lot more kids on the spectrum and Down syndrome and things like that. And I think that there's a level too of, they still have value.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't mean you just like, it's a bad one. Let's just try again, throw that one out. No, this is still a human life. This is still a person. And, many of those people still go on to do wonderful, great things. And some of them are handicapped enough that they will not be able to do some of those things, but that doesn't make them any less valuable.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So there's a level of physical and mental and age and all the things.
So there is this is anecdotal evidence, so I haven't done an extensive study on this or anything, but I've never met a family with a even severely handicapped person, even person who is wheelchair ridden and essentially unable to communicate. I've never met a single family who takes care of somebody like that, who has ever been like, God, how did I get stuck with this? I've never once heard anything like that come out of anyone's mouth. Almost everyone I ever know is like, Cousin Brian? Like, don't you talk I love Brian. Like, like they always kind of have that type of mentality. And certainly it is challenging and difficult, and it comes with a lot of pain and a lot of grief. And so I do not intend to dismiss that as a part of taking care of somebody with a severe handicap. But everyone I know who's ever done it finds it worthwhile, finds it life-giving, and loves the person they care for, even though that person undoubtedly infuriates them from time to time, and so there's a lesson here, and part of this law is resetting our value system into personhood over like, what do you bring to the table kind of attitude, excuse me. Gosh, there was another point that I lost it while I was making that point. Oh, man. Oh, I'm so close to it. It's on the tip of my brain. Oh, gosh. Oh, okay. So the other point I want to make, and this is from my chaplaincy. Because we've talked a lot about like valuing human life and human identity and the divine image of God that's on every human soul. Also, let's be honest, I just talked about putting down my dog I love. Sometimes, and this is about the vagueness of the word honor. How do we honor? Sometimes the best way to honor life is to end it. Sometimes the best way to honor your mother and father is to be disobedient. Sometimes the best way to do it is counterintuitive. And that is, it's a little bit of a gift in this law. It's not as like hard and fast as people make it out to be. It's much more open. There is a vagueness intentionally in this law that says it's up to you to decide how you're going to honor your father and mother. So we've got a lot to record, so I'm going to call it there, and then we can move on to the next ones. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.